Let's jump right into this explainer. We are looking at Neo Harvest. It's a futuristic megacity that poses a question that, honestly, feels a little too close to home these days. What actually happens when an entire society completely and structurally disconnects from its food supply? So we're going to unpack this incredible sci-fi fable called The Harvest of the Sky Chancellor. It's this wild story of ignorance, a massive crisis, and ultimately redemption.
So what happens when the most powerful leader in the world literally has no idea where his food comes from? I mean, imagine being that powerful, but having a blind spot so massive it threatens everything you've built. This brings us to King Adrian. Now, his official title was the Supreme Executive Chancellor, but come on, the guy lived like a king in a literal sky palace. He's floating way up above the clouds, totally isolated behind digital screens, yes-men advisors, and maximum security.
And down below in Neo Harvest, basically nobody grows food anymore. The city is just this shiny marvel of automated systems, delivery drones buzzing around, and pristine factories. But here's the catch, it's all an illusion. Way outside those city walls is the hidden reality. We're talking giant corporate farms, exhausted workers, and broken machinery. It is the ultimate out-of-sight, out-of-mind setup, just on a massive societal scale.
And Adrian? Well, he was reaping all the benefits of that hidden system. Every single morning, his table was just overflowing. Golden bread, exotic fruits, steaming rice, fresh veggies, these wildly expensive desserts. He lived in this bubble of daily luxury. But here is the craziest part. Despite eating the absolute best food on the planet every single day, King Adrian had never, not even once, set foot on an actual farm.
But you know how these things go. The whole illusion completely shatters, and it happens during a totally standard, televised interview. A young reporter just looks right at the Chancellor and asks this incredibly simple, innocent question. Sir, do you know how corn is grown? Right? It's something a kindergartner might ask. But that tiny little pinprick completely pops his insulated bubble.
And his response is just, wow. He doesn't skip a beat. He just smiles this confident smile and says, of course, it's produced in the food sectors. He is literally so disconnected that he doesn't even realize how absurd he sounds. He honestly thinks food is just manufactured in a factory sector somewhere, exactly like stamping out a plastic toy or a microchip.
Well, as you can imagine, the internet had an absolute field day with this. The clip went super viral. Millions of people are just mocking him, posting things like, produced where? And does this guy think food just magically appears in supermarkets? Like, how are you running the whole country and you don't even know where bread comes from? Now, Adrian tried to play it cool and ignore the noise. But you know, that question really got under his skin. It planted this tiny seed of doubt right before the unthinkable happened.
Because it turns out, a highly automated, totally disconnected system is incredibly fragile. A massive disaster hits, and man, it falls apart fast. Day 1, storms wreck the transport routes. Day 2, fuel shortages ground all those fancy delivery drones. By day 3, food shipments completely stop entering the city. Day 4, the supermarket shelves are wiped clean, empty. And by day 5, pure panic. Rationing starts, and the whole city just descends into chaos.
Up in the Sky Palace, his advisors are completely useless. They're just pushing around charts and digital forecasts. But you can't eat a line graph, right? The crisis absolutely paralyzed them. And for the very first time in his entire life, Adrian actually saw hunger, not as a neat little statistic on a glowing screen, but as genuine, raw fear in real people's faces. The whole illusion of his leadership just vanished.
Right in the middle of this total meltdown, an elderly maintenance worker in the palace steps up and drops this incredibly profound truth. He says, "If you want to understand food, sir, you must leave the city." And that was it. That cuts right through all the useless data. It pushes Adrian to do the absolute unthinkable. He puts on a disguise, sneaks out of the safety of his Sky Palace, and actually heads down to the ground.
He travels way outside Neo Harvest into the farming zones, and what he finds is brutal. We're talking endless oppressive heat, broken down machinery everywhere. The workers are just absolutely exhausted, surrounded by dying crops. He watches families pouring every ounce of their energy just into keeping a few plants alive. It is a complete 180 from the automated, magical supply chain he thought existed.
Out there in the dirt, he meets a farmer named Mara and her kids, and Adrian actually rolls up his sleeves and works with them. And let me tell you, just one single day of real farm labor wrecks him. His hands are covered in blisters, his back is aching, his skin is totally sunburned. For the first time, he feels the sheer, agonizing physical toll that goes into growing the food his shiny city was just devouring without a second thought.
That night, they sit down, and Mara hands him this incredibly simple bowl of corn soup. And to Adrian, it is literally the best thing he has ever tasted. Better than any fancy feast back in the Sky Palace. He asks her why it's so good, and she just smiles and hits the nail on the head. Because today, you finally understood what it costs. The value wasn't in it being perfect. The value was the sacrifice it took to grow it.
He didn't just go home the next morning either. He stayed out there for weeks. He really learned how things actually work. He saw how a bad weather system can wipe out a whole harvest overnight. He learned that soil actually needs to rest, that machines are definitely going to break down, and the biggest lesson of all, every single grain of food exists strictly because of human sweat and effort.
So when Adrian finally goes back to Neo Harvest, he's a completely changed man, and he completely overhauls the system. He starts sending direct support right to the farmers. He implements real protections and respect for food workers. He makes it mandatory for city kids to learn agriculture in school. Suddenly, there are rooftop gardens springing up everywhere. And my personal favorite, he makes it a strict rule that every government leader has to spend 1 week a year actually working on a farm. Those changes literally saved them. It reconnected the entire society back to its own survival. And years down the line, the citizens of Neo Harvest had this beautiful way of summing up his journey from a clueless, detached boss to a leader with real empathy. They'd say, the day the Chancellor touched corn was the day he became human. He stopped being an executive, he became a real steward.
You can really see this massive cultural shift right in the center of the city. Back in the day, the ultimate symbol of power was just a disconnected guy hiding up in a sky palace. But the future? Right down in the middle of those gleaming towers, they built a golden statue. But it's not a statue of King Adrian. It's a statue of a farmer holding a single stalk of corn proudly up to the sky.
Now, obviously, the story of Neo Harvest is a sci-fi fable, but man, it leaves us with such a real, provocative question. How connected are you to the people who actually grow your food? It's kind of a wake-up call for all of us to think about the massive, hidden human effort behind every single grocery run. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer today, and hey, definitely keep that in mind the next time you sit down to eat.